Thank you guys for sticking around. So this next panel that we're going to run here, and this is a short panel, this is only going to be half an hour, is the artist development panel. And I suppose, in a way, from my perspective, this is probably the one that I really want to try and crack the most, because for people who are working in the industry here and developing a career as a DJ, as a producer, or somebody wanting to work in the electronic industry in Northern Ireland, recognizing that we are within the nations and regions, you know, we have this classic thing to do with, do we stay here? Do we try and grow ourselves here? Do we move to London? Do we move to Berlin? How can we kind of start to network with the industry? How can we start to push the dial on what we're doing? Build a team around us, get an agent, get a manager, get a lawyer, get someone to PR our music, and so on and so forth. And it's sort of critical for the work that we do in Generator Northern Ireland that we really consider this all the time, consider how to build your networks and your opportunities. So in this lightning half hour, what I want to try and unpick from our panelists are kind of smart, sensible, cool things that we can do within the industry in Northern Ireland, not because we feel like our industry can't stand up next to any other part of the electronic industry globally, and we need to desperately sort of bootstrap off the national and international industry, but we want to grow our network. So how do we do that? How do we do that, blind email to someone that will actually be replied to? How do we kind of send a demo to someone and not have it end up in the bin? So that's the shtick of the next half hour, and I hope we'll get through it and crack it. So I'm going to let each of my friends here introduce themselves to you so you know who they are, and then we'll get stuck in. Starting with Joseph.
Yeah. I'm Joe. I'm a promoter in Belfast. One of the things that we promote is Shine, the monthly nightclub, and we do Balsonic in the Titanic Quarter as well. So I book DJs and bands, and I try to sell tickets for them.
Sounds reasonable. Ash.
Hi, I'm Ashley Howard. I work for PRS for Music. I've only just started that job just over 3 months ago. Prior to that, I was working at Hospital Records for nearly 10 years, predominantly running their publishing company, but also doing A&R, label management, and sync licensing.
Okay, excellent. Lizzie.
Hello, I'm Lizzie Bowman. I work for a company called Red Light Management. I've been doing artist management for about 6 years-ish, mostly working with Bonobo and various other acts, and I live in Bristol.
Excellent. And finally, James/Jacko.
I'm Jacko from a company called Listen Up in the UK. I'm a director of radio and club promotion. Essentially, my job is to get records played on radio.
Okay. Let's find out who's in the audience. Hands up people who are primarily producers. Okay. Hands up people who are primarily DJs. Okay. Hands up people who are both. Okay. We have some.
Can I ask a question? Hands up if you think you're a songwriter. If you're a producer, you're also a songwriter. Just so you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So we want to start with the idea that if we're creating content from here, what we want to do is we want to place it into the public domain in a place that might catch the ears and attention of endorsers, tastemakers, blogs, and so forth. Now, obviously, this is your day-to-day bread and butter in terms of what you do. So I kind of like to talk to all of you about where you go. What are your trusted sources for discovering new music? Jacko, I mean,
for me, it's quite difficult. I work with sort of some pretty high-end acts, but so I tend to not dig as much as I used to. I work with artists like Kolsch and George Fitzgerald and Scuba and those sort of guys that are pre-established, but we've worked at establishing them over the years. So for me, digging is not something that I spend enough time on these days.
Okay.
For new artists. But we get sent an incredible amount of music. A lot of it we turn down, a vast majority of we turn down working or taking on. But we tend to sort of try and give as much positive feedback at any one time. We get sent incredible amount of blind emails.
We're going to talk about blind emails.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, essentially, we get a lot of blind emails referred to by certain artists. But essentially for us, if we like a record, we'll take it on. I think for a label, it's a little bit different because you're restricted to the sound of the imprint. But I think in terms of what I do, if I like a record, I can take it on. If I think I can get it played on radio, if I think club DJs will like it, I can take it on.
Okay,
so it's a bit more open in that manner than a label would be trying to sign a record.
Lizzie, what about for yourself? What are the, if you could kind of throw out 2 or 3 names of either trusted sources or places that you would go to, either to kind of benchmark something that's been pitched to you, or if you just wanted to, in your schedule, do a little music discovery?
Okay, there's a few things that I do if I'm trying to suss out an artist or find new artists. So I'd say probably one of the main things is talking to kind of trusted peers in the industry. So whether that's certain agents that I know, lawyers, bookers, whatever, often I'll go to them and ask them, you know, who's bubbling away for you right now? What do you think's happening? Or what do you think of this person? So there's that. Just you know, friendly chats is still a really good way. But also keeping an eye on all the underground music blogs.
Throw out some names.
Oh God. I mean, your obvious ones, I guess, like RA, and your bigger ones, but then smaller ones like Dummy or Truants, things like that. And also kind of local music blogs, you know, specific to certain cities, perhaps, can have more interesting things on them.
Okay, Joe, from the perspective of someone based here in Belfast, are there, you know, trusted places that you go to when you're thinking about new electronic music, either locally or nationally, that you would want to maybe, you know, stick in the start of a Shine bill or open up a Belsonic bill? Where are you going to?
There's, I guess, again, there's a small network of people who I trust locally, and to be honest, a lot of them work for Shine already. They're kind of local sometimes ex-DJs, current DJs that are in their mid to early 20s, and they know what's going on the ground. I'm at home most nights. So they give recommendations, and that's the newest stuff. That's like the guys that maybe have one track signed or maybe have only played a few gigs, and we can start keeping an eye on them from there. And likewise, I'll check out lineups in the UK for what some of the cooler venues and promoters are doing, like the Warehouse Project and Pressure and Fabric and Tobacco Docks raves and that sort of stuff is, I reckon, if something's catching on in London or Manchester or maybe Birmingham, it's probably a matter of time before it catches on in Belfast as well. And then agents as well. Some of the newer kind of younger booking agents usually have this smorgasbord of emerging talent. Some of whom are just really getting started in their careers, and I would get pitched that stuff on a daily basis by these guys.
And so for those agents who are the junior or starting out as the assistant to someone else, that is potentially a more viable entrance point to a producer DJ from here who's looking to start that conversation. What are the metrics that a local producer DJ needs to be kind of firing out to one of these more early doors agents? Is it about, I can pull 300 people in Belfast? Is it about resident advisor? What are the kind of, what do you think?
It's I guess, again, as we discussed before, it's about if you're a DJ or a producer. I guess we work with guys like, you know, over the years, Errol Alkin and even now Dennis Silda and Jack Master and guys like that are primarily DJs, and they probably got signed on the basis of just being fucking great DJs and putting on great club nights and doing their own thing and building a bit of buzz and having a group of people around them. I know the term tribe,
Yes.
a lot of people use people that people that are like-minded and that you can get together with and you can identify with that group of people as a certain sound or a certain movement.
Okay.
As a DJ, as a producer, it's I guess it's almost completely label and publishing based and getting on the wrong first rungs of that ladder. It's not, I don't know, it's not my thing really. I'm not.
Well, I'm going to jump over to Ashley
much.
right now, actually, and talk about the idea of publishing and songwriting, because you brought it up in terms of the people who are seeing themselves primarily as producers. Obviously, hands up if you know what the PRS is, PRS for music. Can I just get a sense in the room? Okay, so there, we should probably talk for a second about the role that PRS has in terms of copyright and people who are starting to write and make and produce music, setting aside the DJ thing for a second.
Well, I think it was interesting, the question you asked the other three of how do you find talent and where do you go to find new music. Actually, I think one of the challenges for PRS is actually making music creators aware of us. It's actually the other way around.
That's why you're here.
So if you're, the traditional scenario of a songwriter and a recording artist is one person writes the song and the other person sings it. You know, pop music has worked like that for a long time. But in dance music, you tend to be one person, you're the songwriter and you're the performer. So you actually have interests in two copyrights simultaneously. And I think a lot of dance producers sometimes forget actually that there's income streams not just from record labels and not just from neighbouring rights societies like PPL. There's actually an income stream for you through a publisher or through PRS or through both.
Give just a very simple overview of how that works. So I'm sitting in the bedroom and I write a piece of music, and it could be, you know, an instrumental piece of music on an 808 and a couple of synthesizers, and then I finish it, and I'm thinking about putting it onto, I was going to say SoundCloud, but that's a complicated thing to talk about, into the public domain somewhere, onto Spotify. Should I be thinking about registering this, and why should I, and is there money on the table?
To be a member of PRS, you can be an aspiring bedroom producer, or you can be a rock star filling stadiums, or anywhere in between. And when you register your works with us, we then represent your copyright across all the platforms that we license, which includes television and radio, online usages like Spotify, downloads on Beatport. Whether you're playing gigs in a club, there's a royalty associated with that. And if you register your works with us, so you produce a track and it's getting some plays on Spotify. If you don't have a publishing deal, you should sign up to PRS, register your music, and we'll collect royalties on your behalf for the exposure of your tracks.
Well, that sounds like something worth doing. Lizzie, I want to talk for a second about management, because it's another reoccurring theme for people who are emerging as producers and DJs. The assumption is, I bring a manager in as early doors as possible, then I can just retreat into my bicep-style studio and just grind out the hits. And yet, as a manager, I'd be fascinated to know, for example, have you ever taken somebody on who has just pitched to you? Like, hey, manage me, please.
As of yet, no.
Okay.
But I've been having an interesting experience the last couple of months where I have been having ongoing talks with someone, and this is a situation I've never been in before, where actually their mum contacted me, first of all. And usually, you know, I do get emails like that quite a lot, and I would normally just ignore it. But I actually listened to the music in this one, and it was really worth pursuing. So, but usually, no, I haven't taken on anyone that's just kind of sent me an email that I haven't heard of before.
Okay, and do you think there is it's not a good assumption for an emerging producer to want to look at management as they are emerging? They need to kind of earn their chops before they start to consider whether the opportunity of management is something they'd like to bring in terms of a team member.
I would say I think probably what's most relevant to most people here in kind of electronic music and stuff, don't worry too much about thinking, I've got to get a manager, I've got to get this. The most important thing you can do is put in the groundwork yourself and create your own kind of space and world of music, rather than thinking you've got to get other people in straight away to help you build it. They will naturally come to you if you start doing something exciting, hopefully.
They will naturally come to you.
Talent
Absolutely.
cuts through, basically. Talent cuts through.
Jacko, I want to talk then for a second more about the idea of the blogosphere, and we've thrown a couple of names out, and Lizzie's thrown a couple of names out already, and they're obviously, this is what you do professionally, but I'm wondering whether it's possible for someone who is emerging to kind of scale down what you do so they can do it as part of like a DIY strategy to develop themselves as a producer. Can you kind of lay out a bit of a roadmap? If I have my new EP or my new track and I want to put it onto Beatport, or I want to put it into the public domain in some way, give me a sense of like how I could DIY a campaign for a track.
I mean, you can start with club. You know, having DJs play your records in a club is key to sort of kicking off where you want to go. Going to events, giving CDs, giving memory sticks to people. I was just at IMS last week and I was handed about 5 memory sticks, one of which had 5 complete club bangers on it, completely unsigned. Got in touch with the guy. Turns out that he just wants to get some promotion going, and he was just giving out memory sticks to DJs, getting them to play his records. In terms of radio, it's a similar sort of deal. Going to events that presenters are putting on, trying to get in touch with them, getting close to them.
And do you mean physically close in terms of the idea of, going over?
I don't want to go that far.
Yeah, within reason, physically
known.
close. As opposed to, if we're sitting here, someone not even based in Belfast, based in the sticks,
Yeah.
it's going to be harder to get FaceTime with these individuals.
It is, but I mean, I think people are more
Outside of events like this.
DJs, especially sort of club DJs, and sort of more. There are a lot of down-to-earth guys out there. Tapping them up on Facebook, you get a reasonable response. Hitting their managers up, is there a promo email address I can send them records to? That's, largely my job is built through years of relationships. But you have to start somewhere. So reaching out is the first step. And trying to sort of build a relationship with people that you like. I'm sure like Matt and Andy get sent hundreds and hundreds of records, but they can't listen to everything. But at least if you're putting your records out there and you're trying to connect with people, that's the starting point.
I'm
and it builds from there.
I'm interested, Joe, to know your perspective, just following on from that, in terms of the people that you've seen locally coming through, and Bicep is a great ongoing example, but we've had people like Phil Kieran, Space Dimension, lots of people coming through. When you see those people starting to develop, starting to get their first gigs outside of Northern Ireland, starting to get like a higher level of remixes, better DJ endorsement, who tends to be the first person that comes into a team outside the producer DJ? Is it an agent?
It probably is. I think the agent at that stage of the game is certainly for a touring DJ is probably the most important because they can open a lot of doors for you. But it's I guess it's a complicated question. I was going to say that Bicep as an act, I mean, I was aware of from relatively early on, but they're a perfect example of artists that just, they didn't go, oh, why have I not got an agent? That's why I'm not famous. Or why do I not have a manager? That's why I'm not famous. They just built it themselves, and they had the blog, and they started touring, and they had this perception that what they were doing was cool and relevant, rather than just banging their head off the wall going, if we just were able to get that publisher, then, you know what I mean? And I find that a large majority of what the output of the company I work for is live concerts, and we're confronted by bands a lot approaching us going, why are we not, the reason we're not getting on these bills, these big shows or so on, is because we don't have a big time manager or and it's, a lot of the time it's because the material shit, you know what I mean? And this is something that maybe people don't confront so quickly, and not to sound cynical, but it's definitely a problem. Jack, Space Dimension controller, contacted me on a live music message board, fast food. He sent me like a message while he was still making ambient music, and I got lots of messages to that, trying to get support slots and so on, and I listened to it, and I was like, this is incredible. And the earliest stuff that he did, even the earliest stuff, was absolutely unbelievable, and there were 100 other people that contacted me that year that were just terrible. Okay. But we got interested at that, and we put him in touch with Square Pusher, and put him in touch with we put him on with Sven Vath and Sasha and all of this stuff. Some of it worked, some of it didn't work, but I think it helped to get him started, and it's because he just contacted us when he was ready with some material that he was happy with. And if anything, I don't think that I've said this to you before, but I don't get approached often enough by new. I know some of you would say that you get approached too much, but I don't even get solicited that often by new producers and new bands to try and get on some of the lineups. And some of the stuff that we do, some of the DJ bills and concerts and so on, they're pretty big names, and I feel like people should be trying to batter our door down to get on them. And as a result, you'll probably see the same 10 or 15 DJs playing at Shine a lot of the time, and the reason for that, it isn't nepotism, it isn't because we're jobs for the lads, it's because no one else is asking.
That seems extraordinary.
Yeah.
Is that because it's not due to kind of scale, it's not due to the fact there isn't enough depth of talent here?
Oh, no, well, I think there's absolutely loads. They're not in touch, and there's a team of guys from myself and a few others in the office that deal with the bookings of dance music, right down to the guys that are in touch with the newest talent. And even at that level, the people, they're not kicking the door down at all. And I don't know if that's because they don't know that they can or they don't know how, but it's not happening.
That seems strange. I want to follow up, Ash, on one thing that Joe said about putting production and repertoire into the public domain. So the mixes that you're starting to do, the productions you're starting to do. Obviously, he was pitched by Jack Space Dimension, and at that time, Jack was really nailing it. In your time now, and definitely at hospital as well, you must have received an awful lot of demos, and I would imagine that for many of them that were coming through, maybe one of the kind of, if you had A&R meetings, one of the responses was, it feels quite early. Do you think there's an issue, given how quickly the technology allows people to get, within what they feel is like 10%, that people are putting stuff into the public domain too early and not perhaps benchmarking it within their peer group?
When you say people, do you mean the artists themselves?
I mean artists, producers, yeah, absolutely. Due to the ease of putting stuff into the public domain.
I think technology has helped producers reach a higher quality of music production a lot earlier than they used to. I think back in the day, it used to be very difficult to reach that high level of audio quality, whereas I think now that's quite obtainable. What's still very difficult is writing good quality music, and sometimes you can listen to a tune and you think this is really, really well produced.
Yeah.
But then you listen to it a bit longer and you're like, actually, there's no ideas here whatsoever, and I'm going to forget it in 5 minutes.
This is sort of what I'm driving at, is the idea of kind of quality controlling the music that you're making.
So at hospital, we were receiving something like between 1,000 and 2,000 demos a month, and that's just to our demos inbox. Everyone in the company would receive demos directly to them as well. And we actually had to, we genuinely listened to everything, I promise you. We divide all the demos up every month between everybody in the office, and we'll whittle it down to about 5%. And then of that pot, the A&R team would then pick and choose if there was anything worth having. So
okay, that's
I
extraordinary.
would say if you're looking to make music and you're looking to hit labels, I know for a fact Hospital Records will listen. You won't get a response unless it's any good, but they will listen to it.
Okay, it seems the reoccurring thing here seems to be about the kind of quality of the repertoire that's being produced, and the idea that what I've taken encouragement from all of you is that you've all said, I was pitched something, I was pitched it pretty blind, I didn't know who it was, and I responded to it going, holy shit, I actually want to do something with this. As a final thought before a little bit of Q&A, somebody touched upon the idea of emailing and kind of reaching out to people, and that challenging, hugely difficult first email that can work. Each of you, give me a fantastic tip. If I was, tomorrow or Monday wanting to kind of email hospital or email Listen Up and go, hey, will you PR my next thing? Or email Lizzie. Give me the Everest of perfect first emails to the industry. Jacko.
Don't copy loads of people on it. Just send it to me. The BC fail. Don't put loads of people on the email and send it to 50 people on the same email.
100% agree with that. I would also say make it really easy to stream and download it.
100%.
Yeah,
Okay.
don't attach an MP3 to an email.
Can I attach a 48K WAV?
Yeah, exactly.
Of my mix?
Yeah, MP3 format when I was doing A&R was more than adequate. You don't need to send WAVs.
Okay.
It
Joe.
needs to be relevant as well. Like I'll get an email. We're doing like a David Guetta gig, and you get a techno DJ approaching you about playing in the bill, and that guy's an idiot. You know what I mean? And sometimes, 90% of the time, the pitch is not relevant to what they're asking for. So if they're going to contact me about doing a show or something like that, it needs to be, the music needs to suit the show. And it needs to be the pitch at the right time. We've just announced the show. Or can I play on this gig? And most of the time, that doesn't happen at all.
So you think people need to do a lot more research in terms of exactly who they're pitching to?
Yeah, I think
and
email.
What they're into.
That's one of the problems with email, is it's so instant and it's free. Is that people just bang off these emails without maybe giving it the requisite consideration. If you were sending someone a letter, you'd probably give it a huge amount of consideration before doing so. But we just get these just blunderbuss emails coming out. It feels like, those emails you get about maybe you can win $1 million. That's what those, and even from agents sometimes, these emails feel like sometimes it's just like, hi, promoter. It's just, yeah. Okay. So I'm not going to read it.
Be personal,
keep
be
it
specific,
simple,
and flatter the person you're emailing in some way as well. Are there any questions from the audience? We have time for a couple of questions. I'll come down to you. Gentleman here.
Hi. Yeah, I guess Joe's probably one of the people I've sent a million emails to pitching artists over
shit.
the years. It's really interesting to hear the point you raised about artists not reaching out to you directly, and I think it comes down to some artists thinking a few steps too far ahead, so they're so desperate to get an agent and they're reaching out to people like myself, and actually if they took some time to reach out to you, they could build something more organic, which would give them an opportunity to become more attractive to someone like an agent. And the same kind of could be said about trying to get music to certain artists. So if you have an artist like a Maceo Plex, you really want to get your music to him. If you're Facebooking him, he might not reply. So maybe you should be looking at the artists that influence that guy and actually sending it to the 20 or 30 people
totally.
that he's
good
influenced
point.
by. So yeah, it's not really a question, but just thinking.
You're quite right.
No, thank you very much.
We can also hassle the manager as well.
Hassle the manager. It's what they get their 20% for. Amongst other things. Any other questions from the room? Hands up. We have a question at the very back. I should be running, shouldn't I?
How important do you think brand identity is, especially online, for like an up-and-coming DJ?
Yeah, what a good question. How important is brand identity for an up-and-coming DJ? Do you need, to separate yourself out from everybody else? Do you need a killer?
Going back to the point that your man over there just made, that's maybe sitting too many steps ahead of what you're doing. You're trying to, I think, getting your music right. If you're a DJ, getting the right mix put together for the right person. If getting your music to a standard that people are going to want to snap your wrist off for it before you're thinking about brand identity. I mean, sure, Eats Everything was making thousands of records before he made Eats Everything as a brand. He came up with that concept because he had good records and he'd got to a point where he thought, right, now I need to think about me as a concept and what I'm going to do in the future.
Yeah, I agree. Your music needs to be the brand first, and then you build your image and name all around what you're doing.
Unless you're an EDM DJ. I think in EDM, it's all about the logo and the promo picture and things like that, and the other bit doesn't matter so much. But yeah.
They say you can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter.
Wow, lovely metaphor. Do we have one more question from the audience? Final question? Hands up. Yeah.
How much do you guys use Twitter to communicate with artists and find artists? Because I use it a lot, actually.
Loads. That's my answer.
Loads. That's a Twitter answer.
Loads. It's a way of, I guess, the whole tagging other people in a tweet, seeing who else other people, I feel like a bit of a stalker now, but seeing who other people are talking to or mentioning. Yeah, a lot, definitely, yeah.
But this is information in the public domain. This is a great way to do research.
I mean,
or is it
searching
trolling?
Twitter for it sounds weird. I mean, like if I'm sending records to people, it's good to know when they're looking at their promos. You pop up on Twitter, some DJ saying, "Oh, going through promos." That's the right time to send him a promo because it's going to be at the top of the inbox. And then no shit, it's just using your common sense, I suppose.
Cool.
It helps.
Ash, what about you? Twitter.
Not only really at hospital would it be applicable, but not really actually. I would use it, like you say, to kind of stalk people a little bit and see what's going on. But I wouldn't use it to identify talent necessarily.
Okay. And Joe, final word with you. So better be awesome.
Twitter?
Yeah.
I don't use it.
Okay. Okay, well, listen, thank you all very much. That was really useful, and I really am hugely appreciative. Give them a round of applause, please. So I really, really, really hope you can all make it back here in about 6 or 7 minutes for our fantastic closing keynote. See you all in a moment.